How to filter a TypeScript object type, not by the key, but the type of the value. Filtering an object type in TypeScript is simple when we want to filter by keys. We can just use the pick or omit utilities which are built into the language. However, when we want to filter the object type by the values, it's not going to be so simple. So here we can see the user object type, which includes a couple of properties. We will also create the type example, which is going to illustrate the types that we'll create on our way. So let's start with filtering the object type by keys. So we pass what is the source object type to pick as the first type parameter, and the second one, key extends key of t, where we are forced to define what are the existent keys of the type, because if we create something that doesn't exist, then the generic constraint is not met. So let's just pass ID. If you want to pass more, remember these are not separate parameters. This needs to be a single type parameter, so we need to pass a union, and let's create ID and name so that we have a type which includes the string values. We'd also use the TypeScript Playground built-in utility, which is very nice, to display in line what are the types that we'll create on our way. So this is filtering by keys, a very simple approach. However, when we want to filter a type by values, we would need to do a little bit of black magic. So let's start by creating a utility type, which we'd call filter keys. This is going to be a TypeScript map type, so we'll have to iterate over the keys here, and we would create what are the values over here. And this is going to be a type parameter t, which would create what is our source type. So we've got our t, we would iterate over each key, which is a member of key of t, so iterate over all the properties that exist on t, and what we're going to put here is basically whatever is the value under key of t. So in this case, this is just a, let's say, ambient definition of a map type, so it just recreates whatever the original type had. So it basically goes through all keys, changes nothing, and creates a simple object. So this is something that we will start with. So let's see, filter keys of type user, and basically this is going to be the very same thing that we had before. So now comes the black magic. If we want a new object type to filter by values, we would certainly have to define what is the type of the value that we want to filter. Let's say that in our case, we want to have all the values that are going to be strings. So we want the result type to include ID and name, but we want nothing else to be included. The trick here is that we would remap over the keys and basically copy paste what we've got with the type that we want and put a never in every type that doesn't basically match our restriction. So here we would replace what is t of k with a conditional type, so that we would basically, for each property, we would check whether t of k extends what is expected. By the way, we can use a convention that I prefer, is that not to write t, v, k, etc., but make it slightly more readable. So t entity, and here we would have t value. It's slightly easier to understand what is going on. So if we know that the type of the value that has been under a certain property is what we really want, then let's just repeat what was the name of the property. And if it's not the case, let's just put never. So what we can see right now is that for the properties that do satisfy the condition, we've got the property names, and for the ones that do not satisfy, we've got never. Now, the next step is that we would look up what is available under the t entity. And with this step, what we can have is basically give us all the name of the keys that we've had. So in other ways, that would be ID with a union of a name property, And from age, which was excluded, and verified was excluded, and address was excluded, we would basically get a bunch of never types. And since never doesn't change the value of a type when used within a union, basically it reduces down to ID and name. So this is what we've got. And as you can see, since we already have the access to T-entity, we can run a simple pick again on what we have right now. So let's just write that we've got pick on T-entity, and these are basically our keys that we want to iterate over. So this way we have ID string and name string. So there is a little bit of black magic, but I hope it's not that complex.